Today is August 12th, 2006. I am Sarah Locker. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview with the Dakota Memories Oral History Project on the main street of Wishick, North Dakota. Can you guys each state your full names for me, please?
My name's Richard Herr.
I'm Delmar Zimmerman.
Deloris Zimmerman.
And what is this blue building we're standing in front of?
Well,
Right now, it's Herr and Ogren attorney's office, and that's where he is.
well, my earliest memories, it was a post office, and it operated as a post office till 1945. I remember that because my father was a rural mail carrier, and he had a report to work here. After that, it was Gimbel's Cafe, and then it was Wine's Cafe, and then it was Stanley Nickel Insurance Agency, and now it's Herr and Ogren Law Office.
It's kind of gone through a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Do any of you have other memories with this building?
I don't.
Your dad, how long was your dad a rural postal?
Oh, about 30 years. He had several photographs taken of him and his fellow carriers on this building, but I don't have them in my pocket here today.
Was that his occupation, or did he have another one also?
That was his occupation, rural mail carrier.
What I remember about Richard's dad, we lived out in the country, and he was our rural mail carrier. And when we saw his dad coming, we'd get on a horse to get the mail, and usually his dad would wait for us. So we could pick up the mail or package, and then we'd go home. He did that.
Wow. Do you remember about how old you were, or did you do this
Well,
for
I
many
was
years?
probably 10, 11, and that I was a kid.
And the building to the south of it, it's now a bar. Is this
It's a bar now, yeah.
anything before that you remember?
I don't remember anything. Well, as long as I remember, it's a bar. Now it's Blondie's Bar. Before that, it was Bernie's Bar. Before that, it was Steve Rowader's Bar. And Ferdy Vossler was the first one I remember that owned that bar.
I think he had it a long time, didn't he?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he would have had this bar? Was it after Prohibition?
Oh yeah,
oh,
naturally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you know if it was a restaurant that had the alcohol in the back during Prohibition, or one of those type of speakeasy places?
Well, I don't remember anything like that about this building.
Were there other buildings like that?
I don't remember anything during Prohibition. I was born in 1929, and Prohibition ended in 1933, and I think in North Dakota it ended in 1936. So I was too young to remember anything about that. To the best of my knowledge, there were no bars during Prohibition.
Yeah.
They could actually call themselves a bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first bar I remember was one of these buildings here was Brandt's Bar. Otto Brandt owned it. He might have been the first one to start up after Prohibition.
Yeah.
Whether it was one of these two buildings or the one that burned down. There's two buildings up there that burned down only 3-4 years ago.
One of those would have been the bar.
The one further south was a bar. But before that, it was a show hall. And then after being a show hall, it was a bowling alley and a bar for a while. Yes, since around 1950. And it burned in, about 2-3 years ago, 2003, 2002.
Yeah.
It was after the centennial.
Yeah. I thought it was longer than that, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, Richard, growing up in town, what was it like? What was town life like? What would did you guys go play in the streets? Would you play baseball at the church?
Well, there was no organized baseball. If we wanted to play baseball, we had to organize our own teams. Swimming pool didn't open till 1939. Before that, we went swimming on a water hole north of town here, about a half a mile. So that was our main occupation in the summer, was go swimming.
What did you think of the country kids when they would come into town?
Well, there were some country children that went to school with us. In my class there were 3 girls, I remember. It was Youngstown School District, which was, I guess, a 6-mile square, so there were some that went to school with us here, so I guess they were just one like the rest of us. The others we didn't see until we started high school in the 9th grade. Then that's the first time they came to town. I didn't know they comprised then over half the class, I guess. And at that time was 1943 when I started high school, and most of the members of the class must have been country children. I recollect once I counted up, we had 26 in the graduating class, and only 9 of them went from all 12 years with me. The others moved in from the country or somewhere else.
Did the country kids ever get picked on?
No, they were tougher than us.
Richard mentioned baseball a little while ago. I want you to know that he's in the State Baseball Hall of Fame. He's really a baseball promoter for our city and the state. So he's got his picture up in the Hall of Fame up in Jamestown.
Wow.
When was that? 2-3 years ago? That you got that?
No, that was about 1995.
Oh, that was 19. It's been that long ago.
Yeah, I helped promote American Legion baseball and wishing, but I didn't really do so much. But that's a lot of politics, you know. Someone sends in your name as a nomination, and they put you in the Hall of Fame. Harvey Schanzenbach sent my name in.
Yeah, but that's the American way, you know.
Well, Richard is quite a statistician. I think he can remember dates for different basketball games or who won, who lost.
But this year I don't have accurate records about how many games we lost. Nothing was in the Wishing Star.
I know.
I know one year the Jamestown Sun called me up at the school to find out about the county tournaments going years ago. And I had most of the information, but I said, before I make it official, I want to check with my consultant. So I checked with you. I don't know if you remember that or not, but yeah. They had a big article about the McInish County tournaments, basketball tournaments in the Jamestown Sun, and they did mention. I said, the only way I'll give you this information if you mention his name, and they did. They gave him credit for it.
So were sports a big deal in high school when you guys were kids?
Oh yeah, that was the main activity, is worrying about who was going to win the next basketball game in the next tournament.
Did any of you play in high school? Any sports?
No, I didn't play, but I was student manager. But during the war, it had to be kind of curtailed, the basketball program. They couldn't travel so far. There was gasoline rationing. I remember in 1943, or I think that was the year we played Ashley 4 times because they were the nearest town. Where now they travel 75, 80 miles to go to a basketball game.
Did the war have any other impacts that you remember on?
Well, there were no football teams in those years. Basketball went on as usual. Well, some of the teachers were drafted. Our coach was drafted, Myron Anderson. So the superintendent had a coach for a few years. He was older. He didn't get drafted. Ivor Knapp was his name.
I played basketball at Lair, and we used to come over here to play Wishick every year. I remember one year, I don't. You probably remember the year. Lair beat Wishick 4 times, and we thought, this is our year for the county tournament. We get to the county tournament and they beat us. So we still hadn't won the county tournament. I can't remember what year that was though. Probably 48 or
Well,
49.
you were playing?
Yeah, probably 48 or 49, maybe 50, right in that area.
Oh.
Yeah. So the good old days.
Well, 49 wish you got a very good basketball team in 49. They beat someone down at the McIntosh County tournament 49-3. I don't remember. That was you, Lair or Ashley.
that was Lair. You know, the score was 49-1, and there was a last second shot. So and he swished it from the center line. Then it was 49-3. Darvin Jenner scored that.
Oh.
Scored that basket.
Sports were a big deal then.
Oh yeah, yeah. It still is in the small
I
towns.
think small towns still are
Yeah.
very much involved in the sports.
Do sports kind of become the center of youth activities
Yes.
too?
Yeah.
Yes. Baseball in the summer. Track
Yeah.
in the spring.
Basketball.
And now, of course, the girls have sports, volleyball, basketball, which they never used to have.
Yeah.
Would you have wanted to play sports in school?
Well, I don't know. I was a tomboy, so I probably would have. I grew up with 5 brothers.
Well, the girls had teams in the 1930s, in the early 40s, girls basketball. And they were playing in that old brick building that's been torn down. I got a picture of it in there. But yeah, they always played the preliminary game. They had different rules. They had only 3 girls. They couldn't run the whole floor. They thought that was too hazardous for them.
Now,
Run the whole floor, so they had us play. Had 6 on a team. 3 had to stay on one side of the floor, and 3 had to stay on the other side.
In high school, I didn't. Only the girls played in high school. You didn't have teams to go to other towns, and you could only play half the floor. One person could go for the half, but 3 people on this side and 3 on the other.
So you're worried about it being
Too strenuous.
Thought it was too strenuous for girls to run the full length of the floor.
Yeah.
Little did they know.
Exactly. Well, we'll go on to the building south now of Blondie's Bar.
Right now, that's also owned by Blondie's Bar. I don't know. I would guess that was the gamble store there.
Yes, it was when we came, I think.
Yeah. That was a gamble store. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next one, I guess that was probably the Meidinger's grocery store, but I might be wrong on that. Maybe Doc Riesel had his office there in recent years. He had to have been in one of these buildings.
Dr. Riesel, I think, was in this building here, Richard.
Well, it could be.
Go ahead.
Do you remember what the other 2 buildings were that burnt down? It's now a park.
Well, the first vacant lot, that was a Wines' Cafe. After she moved out of here, she moved down there. That was a fairly new building. And then she ran it for several years, and then Pam Rowader or Pam Fondry ran it for a few years. And right next to it was the old show hall that was converted into a bar. I guess there was a door between them so you could order a meal at the cafe and consume it over at the bar. So the first guy that had the bar was Henry Fader that I remember. Henry Fader and Eddie Weiser. There was a bar in a bowling alley. Mostly, I think it was recreational center. They didn't have all them alcoholic beverages. They just had about 6 pool tables, 1 snooker table. Then downstairs was a bowling alley, a recreation hall. Then it was later on was converted into a full-fledged bar.
Do you remember hanging out at that place?
Oh yeah, I liked to play pool there and snooker. They called it snooker. I don't know. I don't see them tables anymore where you have one cue ball and then the balls are all red. Did you ever see those tables?
Yeah, what does the rest of the pool table look like?
Well, it was a little larger than an ordinary pool table, but there was only the cue ball and then all the red balls. And then there might have been one that was a neutral color. And then you had to shoot all the red balls in the pocket before you could go after that neutral colored one. If you did, you were the winner.
And what was that called?
Snooker, they
Snooker,
called
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I've never played it. I've never heard of it.
They might still have it in some of the larger halls, but I haven't seen it for a long time.
Sure. Okay, we'll continue talking about the buildings on the west side of the road, starting at the south end and make our way north. What was this one on the corner here?
Well, that was the First State Bank. As far as I know, the most prosperous bank in Wishick. Or I guess Security State Bank down there claims to be the oldest bank in Wishick. But this was the First State Bank, operated by H.E. Tim for many years. It went broke during the Depression. During the 1940, it went broke and was in the hands of receivers for a couple of years. Then it closed as a bank. So that's the first bank that I remember in Wishick. It hasn't been a bank since. What has it been since 1940?
Well, I know it as a shower building and a Meckel building, I guess. Other than that,
Insurance
insurance,
agents.
yeah.
It's a place for insurance agents to have their office. There was something upstairs where you could hold meetings. The Legion used to hold meetings up there, but I never was a member of the Legion at that time.
I thought you'd been a member of the Legion for your whole lifetime.
No, only since 1962.
Oh.
But the Legion here started around 1920, 1919 or something. They had their meetings there immediately after World War II. Until they built a new hall over here, which is now a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Well, the next building there was a tavern. I don't remember what the name of it was.
Weber's Bar, I think. Or was it something else before that?
Well, the earliest owners that I remember were August Ekman and it was kind of a peculiar bar because contrary to most bars, most of their business was in the morning. You went in there in the morning, it was crowded with people. They'd be playing cards. Owners complained that they never bought any drinks, they just played cards all morning long.
Was alcoholism ever a problem in Wishick?
Well, I guess that's a problem everywhere. You can't say Wishick, it depends on the people, I guess. Yeah, there were a lot of alcoholics that lived in Wishick, yeah. And still do. Nowadays they go and take treatment. Back in the old days, they didn't have Heartview or places like that.
Did people ever try to help them stop drinking, or did they just let them be?
Well, they didn't. I don't know, it wasn't considered a disease back then.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Makes
Just
sense.
drank too much. It wasn't called an addiction then. I don't want to name any names.
That's fine.
They call it socializing. It's socializing. Okay, the next.
But yeah, there were a lot of them that spent all day in the tavern then. I shouldn't say a lot of them, there were some of them that were notorious for spending all day in the tavern. But they could spend all day there too and not take anything to drink except soft drinks.
Yeah.
Well, they'd play pool and cards. But in the evening, they were usually empty, that bar. And the People went to these two bars here on this side of the street. At one time there were 4 bars here. Now there's only 1, right?
I think so. Yep.
Well, you can see that tavern now has undergone a complete conversion. It's got religious literature there in front, religious signs. The owner is a very religious person. I think he owns this building too here now.
Yeah, I think
He
so.
buys up these old buildings to store his property.
Been a collector of things for years, especially religious memorabilia.
So that's tavern has undergone a complete conversion. Well, you know the next building?
Well, the next building, that was a hardware store for years. I don't know what it was. Was it ever anything else besides a hardware store?
No, not that I remember.
Yeah.
But August Hope was the first guy I remember owning that store. He was our neighbor out there.
Yeah.
And the owners usually lived upstairs. That's an apartment up there, isn't it?
Yeah, people can live upstairs,
Yes.
yeah. I
And
don't know if there's anybody living up there now,
I
but
don't think so.
I don't. Well, more recently, that's been Cellular Hardware, right?
yeah, it's still operating, but it's not open to the public where people walk in. It's
Well, they're video.
Kind of a video.
runs a video store, and then he delivers videos to service stations and all over.
Distributes videos, right, to different
Right,
towns,
yeah. The next building probably was the most important business in Wishing. Herr Mercantile Company. Started in 1905. There used to be windows in front there, and then the middle part was a door, but they boarded that all shut. But that was Wishing's largest department store. Herr Mercantile. They sold groceries. They had a soda fountain in there. They had a butcher shop in there.
That was probably
They sold
the.
clothing,
Yeah.
shoes. You could just about buy anything in there.
Yeah. That was probably one of the largest stores in the area.
Yeah.
I can remember as a kid when my parents would come shopping here, they had kind of a nursery in the back of the store where ladies could go with their babies and feed them or sit with them. And sometimes I think people would buy the sausage and bread and they'd even eat in back of that nursery.
Did a lot of stores cater to women like that?
This is the only one that I would know of, yeah. Was neat.
Yeah. Early day nursery.
Yeah. The next building would be the Mightinger store, right?
Yeah, well, I was
Oh,
going to
okay,
add
okay.
on this. They operated, I think, from about 1905 till 1978. That's when the Herrs sold it. There were several Herrs, brothers and the sons. They sold out in 78, then it was operated for a few more years, but I forget when it was boarded up, about 86 or 87.
Has it been that long? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, you can go.
Yeah, that was a Mightinger store there, clothing store for years. Was it anything else before then?
Well, there used to be a hardware store called Hoper's Hardware Store.
Oh,
It was a wooden building. But I see it still advertises on the side overalls.
yeah.
Oshkosh, my
Oshkosh,
gosh.
yeah.
You know where Oshkosh is? Right.
Yeah, Wisconsin, yeah.
Well, they made a brand of overalls, I think.
Yeah.
Do you remember when it would have switched from the hardware to the clothing store about?
When it went to, that must have been whether it was a Mightinger, who was the first one that ran a clothing store? Was Mightinger over there? Or Willie
Mightinger.
Almond?
Well, Meidinger's daughter, Vangie,
Yeah.
after Meidinger's retired, then Vangie, the daughter, and her husband ran the store. And she used to go to buying trips to Minneapolis, and they had beautiful clothes. Really nice clothes in there.
That must have been converted around 1950 or so. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
It was Meidinger's clothing when we came in '56.
See, a fellow by the name of J.W. Hofer owned it. He owned both those buildings. The one right north of it had this Oshkosh my gosh store. And the one right north of it was a drugstore. And then there was a door between them. You could go between the two buildings. But it didn't have plaster or walls in it. It was just a wooden building then. And Whitinger must have renovated it so it has at least a brick or a parent brick exterior. Or there might be a wooden building underneath there.
Were most of the buildings downtown wooden or plaster? Or would they have been brick buildings?
Well, a lot of them were wood, yeah. They had to be built before the fire. They had a fire ordinance, but fire zone established it. After a certain time, they had to be brick or cement. But early buildings, yeah, were wood. In fact, the one we're in, I think, is wood. It's just covered up with steel on the outside. These two here might be just
Wood with plaster on the outside?
So next to that was a drugstore.
yeah.
And I remember going to see a doctor. The doctors were on the second floor.
Yeah, Dr. Maloff was a dentist. He had his office up there where you see the two windows.
Yeah.
And then there were also doctor's offices in that upstairs.
I remember the doctor I saw up there was a Dr. Grant as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the early.
And there was a Dr. Merkline.
Did you visit? Did you guys go to doctors a lot?
Well, we did when we had something really bad with us.
But not like a
No.
yearly checkup type thing?
No, never. No.
I never went to a doctor up there, but I went to obviously the dentist, Dr. Maloff. We go later on, started that building down there.
What did it become later on then?
Upstairs?
No, the whole building.
Well, right now Laura's
No.
running
yeah,
a beauty shop there.
Yeah. But before that, what?
Well, then it was closed for many years. I think after, seems to me it was closed for many years before they reopened it.
Oh.
Well, there was a laundromat in the back. Was there a laundromat in the back for a few years?
Can't remember that.
But right now the beauty shop is where the drugstore used to be. And upstairs is now living quarters. There's people living up there. My closest neighbors. I live up over this building here.
What about the barber salon? What that building used to be?
Well, that used to be my earliest memory of that was it was the International Harvester dealer owned by John Pudwell. That was around 1946. No, that was around 1940, 41, 42. Because in 43 he moved to Walla Walla, Washington. His son was in my grade, same grade as I was, so I lost my best buddy when he moved out to Walla Walla, Washington. But during the war you couldn't get any equipment, so all they had was old farm equipment on that empty lot. International tractors and things like that. It was right before they invented the combine. So he quit business at the wrong time after the war. The guy who bought him out became wealthy because they started manufacturing combines and selling a lot of machinery. So yeah, that was then Betty Schlenker owned it as a repair shop for automobiles.
Oh, yeah, right.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, he repaired
Now it's a
radios.
barber shop for many years. That must be a barber shop. 40 years already.
Yeah.
Is that the same facade and exterior that it would have been when?
Yeah, that's
IH
about the
was
same. Yeah, that's a wooden building. I don't know, maybe that siding is new. No, that probably was a different facade. I don't remember them shingles being up there.
No.
Would the shape have been the
The
same?
barber probably put them up.
Shape was probably the same.
Did it
Shape
have
was the
a
same,
square
yeah.
There? Okay. Rectangular front. The metal building to the north, that looks new.
Yeah, that was constructed around 1978 or so, I think.
I think there used to be an empty lot there, right? Well, it was a
No.
Legion. There was a Legion Hall, a
That
Legion
was
building there
between
too.
the barber.
Right north of the barber shop was a Legion Hall, which was built after the World War II in 1946, but it was just destroyed here 3-4 years ago. You can still see the foundations. And that new building there, that's owned by the Wishing Job Development Company. They got about $100,000 invested in that, and no tenants. But it was a clothing store. But originally, that's the site of the old Sheridan House. It was a hotel. I remember that. Sheridan House Hotel being on that site. It wasn't operating in the 1940s anymore, but it was still there, an old wood building. A lady
Closed
by
down in the 30s.
in the 30s, yeah, it was operating yet. A lady by the name of Sheridan
So we had
moved up from Eureka and started that hotel.
so we had a couple of hotels here at one time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they had a lot of railroad workers going through, and they'd
Yeah.
have to stay overnight.
Yeah. Okay.
Did the Depression cause them to go under, or just the railroad business slowing down?
Well, the railroad changed their mode of operation. I don't know if anybody stays overnight here anymore from the railroad. They used to run the railroad from Hankinson to Wishick. Then they'd stay overnight here, and then they'd go back to Hankinson the next day. Is the way that railroad operated.
They had a roundhouse here too.
Yeah, that's still here. That's
Yeah.
down there where the north
Yeah, we'll get a
west
picture.
quarter of
We'll
town.
get a picture of that later. Yeah.
Okay.
The roundhouse. I think we read something about where the railroad came here in 1898,
Yeah, that's
and that
right.
they ran the train twice a week to start with on Thursdays and Saturdays, and after that I think it went daily.
Yes, it was a train every day. There'd be a whole bunch of box cars, and then there was always 3 cars at the end. One was American Express. Is that they're a credit card company now, but
Yeah.
I think they were American Express. There was an express car where you got shipped packages, and then the other was a cream car where they shipped cream, and then the last car of the train always was the passenger car. So you could get on the train here and go all the way to Minneapolis or up to Bismarck. I think I did both. Went to Minneapolis on it a couple times and came back on it a couple times.
When you would go to Minneapolis, was it just a couple-day trip, or would you?
Oh no, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't take that long.
But would you go down on one day, come back the next, or how long would the trip take you?
Well, you might be able to get on the train in Minneapolis at 6 in the morning and get here around 4 in the afternoon or something.
So they
Most of
made
a day trip.
they made pretty good time though.
Well, yeah, actually, that's why Wishing was founded, that kind of that trade, and that was the fastest way of communication then. Cars didn't hardly exist in 1900. If people traveled by train, you could go by train to Ashley or Victoria,
To Lair.
down to go to Lair. Or Lair was the easternmost stop, right east of here. And we kept on going, all the way to Minneapolis. So I guess one of the earliest lawyers in Wishick was a resident of Minneapolis. He went home every weekend and came back on Monday.
Remember his name?
I forget his name now. I could look it up, but
Yeah.
right now offhand I forget his name.
And now the Security State Bank claims to be the oldest bank in Wishick.
Yeah, I guess they were older than this one. They say they were the oldest. Did you ever hear that claim? Well, now, of course, they're the only one. Well, no, now they got the First Community Credit Union out here. Well, their exterior now is different than it used to be.
Oh yeah.
They remodeled that quite a bit.
What it used to.
That bank was, I suppose you got to give them credit. They were one of the few banks that didn't go broke during the Depression.
That
Well,
bank
the name
that's true.
owned it by the name of John J. Doyle. He was always proud that nobody lost a dollar putting a money in his bank. Where people that put their money in this bank over here, they lost money.
That bank has no windows except the front door.
Right, yeah.
There are no windows in that building.
Did all those different
I don't know.
plastic part used to be windows? Did there
Did-
used to be more windows?
You know, I can't remember.
I
No,
can't
I
remember
don't know
either.
what those arches are, whether they were windows or not. I don't think so. Well, right north of that, you get to the Auto Inn. That was Wishing's biggest hotel. That's where the trade workers used to stay. I had a golfing buddy. He'd always come from Hankinson with the train at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He'd be knocking on the door. He'd say, "Richard, let's go golfing." And I'd go out golfing. I'd see that he worked on the train. We'd drive out golfing and haul him back in. He says, "Well, I got to sleep fast. I got to get up at 3 in the morning. Go back to Hankinson." But they did that for quite a while. I don't remember when they quit them crews. It's not Sioux Line anymore. Now it's Dakota, Missouri Northwestern Railroad. But there's no passenger service.
Well, did the railroad people stay there when Art and Amanda had that?
Yeah.
But I think when Judy bought that, they no longer took in railroad people, did they? Judy Morgan?
When did Judy buy it?
Well,
Well, I'd say it's at least 20, 30 years ago
Oh, yeah.
that they don't stay there.
And there was a body shop down there, too. Where was the body shop? On the north side?
Yeah.
Weiser Body Shop?
Is that building there yet?
No.
no.
That was on the north side of the hotel. Yeah.
But wasn't that a theater at one time, that on the north side?
Yeah, that also was a theater. Earlier it was a theater, but so early that I never went to a movie there. So
Oh,
it was in the days of the silent pictures. But I recall they had dances there, which I never went to either. And then
weren't
it was
into
converted
dancing?
into a body shop.
You weren't into going to dances?
Well, I was too young. You know.
You don't remember? And did you say you went to the silent movies?
No, I say that's what they had down there was silent movies, because it must have been in the 1920s. All the movies were silent then, right?
Yeah. The
I
talkies
don't
didn't
think
come out till the 30s.
I don't think the talking movies came out until 1931 or so. When Greta Garbo started talking. Greta Garbo started out in the silent pictures. And all of a sudden they had one, where it says Greta Garbo talks. One of her first utterances was she went into a bar and says, "Give me a whiskey."
You remember that, huh? I don't remember
Or
that.
that was I forget the name of that, Annie something was the name of that movie. Written by Eugene O'Neill. That was one of the first movies where they talked. But I remember going here at this movie house, they were silent yet, they'd have the script underneath. You have to read the script on the screen. So, well, then they're right across the street there, on this side of the street, where you see the Titan machinery there, they got several buildings. That used to be John Deere dealer back in the 1930s. That's where my uncle ran that John Deere dealership, John Pudwill. And then it burned. So then he moved up here. But he went broke then. Like I said, he never made much money because he got out of the business before the combines and things like that.
So that Titan International Harvester building used to be John Deere.
Yeah, it was a John Deere. John Pudwill owned it. And then he sold it to Jake Kramer after the fire.
Oh.
That Jake Kramer got rich then. John Footwell never made much money. He had to come back. He moved to Walla Walla, Washington, but every year he'd come back trying to collect what people owed him.
Do you guys have any other memories on Main Street before we move again?
Well, Maggie's Cafe, we should talk about Maggie's Cafe a little bit.
Well, the building right next to Maggie's Cafe, that was built after the war.
On the north side?
Yeah, used to be the same as the Stamp Super Value out here. He started working.
Yeah.
He started his store when he was up here yet.
That was on the north side of Maggie's.
Right.
Yeah.
And then comes Maggie's Cafe. I guess earlier it was a barber shop. I don't know when Maggie started, around 1946 or so. But he knows more about Maggie's Cafe than I do because he
Used to support him. Used to support him, right? Spent a lot of time in there. It was one of the best cafes in the state, I think.
Yeah, it was a good cafe.
Yeah.
An old building, but the food was good, the service was good.
Yeah.
It didn't cost too much.
Yeah.
And it started 1906 as that building's date, though?
No, I said
About
46.
46.
Okay,
As a cafe. Before that, it was barber shop. But they changed that quite a bit too. I see they got a cement wall here on the south side now. But now it's abandoned too. It's empty, not operating. Both of the buildings on the end of this block, they're not operating anymore. Well, this whole block, there's only where a customer could go in and transact business is only, you could go in there and buy insurance, and go and get there and get a beauty, get a permanent, and then you could get a haircut.
And go over and across the street and have some coffee.
Well, you can't do that anymore. But you could go to Herr and Ogre and get legal advice, and go, or you could go to Blondie's Tavern. All the other businesses are closed. This used to be the main business street of Wishing. Now it looks like a ghost town.
Well, we spread out so much in the last few years. We have the implement dealer out east, the far end, John Deere, and then we have Fifely Chevrolet next, and then we have Jim Weber Ford on the west side, and Cenex on the west side. So we're like the big towns. We spread out.
Yeah, there's businesses that are still here. They just all moved away from Main Street.
Yeah.
This used to be called Main Street.
Now, how about across Beaver Avenue? That first building, that used to be a dental office too, right? No, that was that a dental office? We're on the south side of Beaver Avenue now.
Yeah, that was built as a dental office by Dr. Malhoff. He was up here, and then he built that office there. What year it was, I don't recollect, but it must have been after 1950 or something.
Yeah.
It was before then because as a kid I went to see Doc Milhoff in that dental office.
Yeah,
Well, it could have been 46 or so.
in the 40s,
I
yeah.
think
So that's a fairly new building.
Yeah.
These others are all old, built in the early 1900s. All of them except that one on the end. And on this side, I think all of them were built in the early 1900s except that one on the end. It was built. Herb Indsey built it down there in 1946, that grocery store.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
called Red Owl.
Red Owl, yeah.
Yeah.
How about the building next to the Malhoff's dental office? What was that?
It used to be the Wishing Star.
Oh yeah, Wishing Star for many years. Wishing Star.
Yeah, it was Wishing Star, and before that there was a jug dealer there.
Jug?
Frank Riegler.
Oh, Frank Riegler.
It was his son that graduated from Wishing High School in 1932, and he got very rich. You go out to our golf course, it's named Lloyd Riegler Golf Course, because he donated $50,000 to the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
He just died a couple years ago.
That feels
But he had about four, five, 6 children. Just about all of them were valedictorian in their class. And this Lloyd Riegler, he got rich with what was that? Adolph's meat products.
Adolph's meat processing, I think. Yeah.
No, Adolph's meat tenderizer.
There you go. Adolph's meat tenderizer. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Riegler family, they were Jewish, and how many Jewish families did we have in town at one
They
time?
said, well, the book said at one time there were 12 Jewish families, and there was a Jewish synagogue. The house where Gerald Just is living now, that's where the synagogue was. And after the Jewish people moved out, and then they tore down the synagogue.
Well, yeah, there were some. Whether there were 12 families or not, I don't know. But Rieglers were one of them. They were probably the last ones to leave.
Probably.
Because their daughter graduated from high school in 1945, their youngest daughter. She was 2 years ahead of me. And then there was some named Dorfman.
Mm-hmm.
Dorfman? Yeah.
They had a butcher shop. It might have been a bit on that vacant lot there.
Yeah.
Any other names I don't really know.
Well, Richard, I have a question for you. Since there were German Russians and then you also have Jews living in town, was there any ethnic tension or different treatment between different people?
No, I don't think so.
Nobody cared if you were Jewish or German or Norwegian?
No, like that girl, she was just 2 years younger, 2 years older than me. She seemed to be pretty popular. She was back here in 2002 for the reunion. Well, that's when Lloyd Riegler was here in 2002 when they made that gift to the golf course.
Well, Lair had a Jewish store. Lair had, what was the name? But they all were merchants or business people.
Yeah.
If you go to Ashley, on that county road that goes south from Lair, then you go by a Jewish cemetery about 2 miles north of Ashley. My mother always used to joke that there's a light in every grave, an Israelite.
Yeah.
Oh. I had uncles and aunts living in the Danzig Ashley area, and I remember them renting land from Jews. Louis Rubin.
Yeah, Louis Rubin.
And there was a Lux, L-U-X. I don't know what his first name was, but they lived out west, and they'd come back here once a year, and they treated my uncles and aunts very well. Coming back to answer your question, there was no friction there at all. They treated them well. Yeah, they treated them very well. Now, how about that yellow house next to the Wishing Star?
Well, that I don't remember. That might have been a body shop, but I don't remember whether that was used for anything important.
Well, then the last building on that block on the west side, that's our historic site.
Yeah.
The city library.
It's on the National Register.
Yeah.
But it's scheduled for demolition.
How old is the library? When was it built?
That must have been a build about 1905 or so, huh?
Yeah, I would say, huh? There was the first fire hall in Wishick. And what else? A lot of firsts there.
Well, the library was in there, the city hall was in there.
Someone said that
jail was in there.
Somebody said the post office was there for a while.
That I don't remember that. But there was a jail in there.
Yeah, jail.
Downstairs, yeah.
But it's not fit for keeping anybody there now.
Yeah, it'd be very nice if they could renovate that, but would take a lot of money. Okay, on the east side, here in the corner, Riley Insurance is. That's where Ekman Service Station.
Standard.
Ekman Standard Service Station. What was there before that? Do you know?
Wolf Service Station.
Wolf Service. Oh. Okay.
But those buildings now on the next block, they're almost all newer ones, built after World War II.
Okay, so they're not old.
The oldest one probably is the senior center that was built around 1950 or so.
That was a bowling alley when we came to
Yeah.
Wishick in '56.
The senior center.
Yeah.
Drugstore was built later. There was the Ford garage was the last business at the next town. That burned down too. City Hall is there now, on this side of the street. But it used to be Ford garage.
What on this street down about 2-3 blocks is Walter Milhoff's residence. That used to be a congregational church, and I can't remember the year that shut down.
Well, was it the Congregational Church or the Congregational Church Parsonage?
No, it
No, it
was
was a church. It was a church.
Well, we lived right across
we
from
lived,
it.
Yeah, we lived right across the street. Reverend Krenzer was a minister when we were there.
Oh,
So that was a congregational church. And then, well, like you said, the Gerald Just home used to be
The whole,
Jewish.
No, there was a synagogue there, but
Oh.
it was not that house that was the synagogue. That was
Yeah.
torn down.
Yeah.
There is a Reformed church that was made into a home, and Lydia Riley lived in it.
yeah.
And now I think it's a rental.
Yeah, Steve Rowader owns it now.
I know.
Yeah. You wouldn't. You
Was
would.
there ever any tension between religions, or
I
I don't think so.
never experienced any. I don't know.
Do you?
What?
Tension between religions here in
No.
town? No.
were the churches?
Oh, in the old days, I remember where the Catholic, everybody figured the Catholics were way off base, and the Catholics figured the Baptists didn't know what they were talking about. But I guess lately they seem to get along pretty good.
When we came in '56, there were only about 3 Catholic families.
Yeah.
The Shermans,
Yeah, there used to be a
Ackermans.
small church.
But
Catholic.
that church has really grown.
I think
and
that's
that's
the
great to
only
see
one
that.
that's grown.
Yeah.
It has
It's
had
growing.
a lot of members.
Did families in town, were they described based on religion, or would it be that German Catholic family or that German family, German Lutheran family? Did they ever refer to?
I think just
Lutheran or
good old Germans.
Well, I remember they used to
Germans was first, I think, right?
refer to them. There's a lot of Catholics on farms living west of town. They used to have a name for them. They had their own language, I guess, even Kachufish or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of used to talk to them in a derogatory way. They had their own language, and they were all Catholics. Lately, though, they seem to get along pretty good.
I think it's changed.
Oh
a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
I really do. They're very accepting of different religions.
There was a Jewish family had a big farm between Wishing and Lair. I forget their names. They lived down in Chicago,
Well, that's Cleo
Where-
owns that
where
farm
Dale
now.
Kennerly lives.
Mm-hmm.
Cleo owns the farm.
Cleo Bogie.
Yeah, he bought it from.
Yeah.
I forget their names.
It was just known as a Jew farm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
they
what
call
was
it the
their
Jewish
name?
farm.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
Cleo would know it.
You made it regardless of the weather.
No excuse.
Sometimes I went to school when there wasn't any school.
Wow,
Yeah.
right across the street.
Yep.
And this is just the grade school here?
Well, see, this is the new part here. You make a left, and then we'll see the school that I went to.
Okay.
This was added years later.
About 30 years ago. Yeah.
And right now, it's an assembly plant.
Fargo Assembly Plant.
Manufacturing place. They assemble wires or something like that. I don't know. That tall brick used to be the elementary and the high school building.
Yeah.
Oh, so where?
This wasn't it.
No, this was not.
This wasn't even
Okay.
here.
Oh,
No,
okay.
this is all added. It says Faith Christian School on top. They have a
Parochial
parochial
school.
school.
So,
Oh, they still have Lowenthal on top.
So if you wanna-
1923.
Yeah, low 1,000. 1923.
And this is the grade school.
And the high school.
And high
And
school.
the high school wasn't separate.
No.
No.
So how many classrooms would have been used for grade school?
I suppose 6.
They
You didn't
combined.
have separate for each grade?
Didn't they combine
Mhm.
classes? They must have.
No, not when I went.
Oh, really?
Later on, they might have.
So then for high school there were also 4 more.
Bottom windows here, classroom on the south side.
That's where I took typing.
That's where their typing class was, and when
And
we
the
took our
instructor told me I'll never be a typist.
and when we took our final test, typing, I was accurate but slow typer. While I was taking the test, a baseball came through the window. And I did lousy in my final test. And I told the superintendent I could have done much better, but that scared me. He believed me. He believed me. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
So that was typing 1, and then he wanted me to take typing 2. I said, I'm not going to take it. You'll need it someday. I'll never need typing. He says, you're going to be a school teacher someday. And I says, ha! Laughed at him. If he'd known what I did after that, he'd be rolling in his grave many times. But I never did take advanced typing.
I look at it this way. You shouldn't have been a teacher to tell your student you'll never be a typing.
His office was up in the middle.
Yeah.
Or
Right
the
above
middle,
that sign.
above the sign.
Did you have to go there?
No, well, we were buddies. He was our coach, We were buddies.
Yeah.
And bad weather. We tell him, God, the weather's really getting bad. We should dismiss school, He says, no, I can still see my house. You know where his house
Over
was?
here.
Over here across the street. He says, I can still see my house.
You did not smart on that time, did you?
Yeah.
So where would you have played basketball at though?
The
Where's the gym?
gym was behind.
Oh, itty bitty gym.
Small.
There were no bleachers for people to sit. They set benches along the wall. Oh, that was tiny.
You know a little about basketball, zone defense and stuff like that. We were kind of short, We'd play Ashley. They'd average 6 feet. They'd put up a zone defense. We couldn't get in. We had to shoot long shots.
You were too short.
And then we shot long shots and hit the ceiling.
Not a very high ceiling?
No, the very high ceiling. And after that, they use it as a hot lunchroom. And, I'd come over here for ball games with some teachers from Michigan. You played basketball in here? I says, yeah, it was one of the biggest gyms in the area at that time.
How the building do for heat and
Good.
heat well and
That had that hot water heat.
Hot water heat, steam,
Those
yeah.
things that make noise.
Radiators, yeah.
Yeah, I always remember that.
what about on those hot summer days?
Well, you
Or
don't go to school.
fall days?
Oh, fall.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we grew up without air conditioning, so we really didn't know what we were missing. But I came here as a freshman. I did my elementary school out in the country.
Must have been quite a transition.
It
from the city
was
school.
because the city kids thought they were smarter than the farm kids. That's true. We were looked down as the plows.
Do you think you thought you were better than the country kids?
I didn't.
Oh,
I don't think I
I
did.
don't know. But I know.
Well, I must have figured you were good enough for me.
Gee, thanks. Yeah. I graduated with a class of 10, and out of that, I think there were 2 farm kids. The rest are all city kids. He graduated with a class of 4.
You knew everybody.
I always said I'm proud to say that I was a 3rd in my class.
Everybody had an office.
Well, how many did you have? I said 4. And then, yeah, and I said everybody had a class office. I was the treasurer. But then I went on to say, that I was third, but I was proud of it because the first two, they were bookworms, and I wasn't a bookworm. I got good grades, but I wasn't a bookworm.
Sounds like you both had a little bit of fun in school.
Oh, yeah.
Did the elementary kids mix at all with the high school kids because you were in the same building?
I don't know.
Did
I
you
wasn't
see
here
them?
with elementary, so.
Not really. I guess we went to their Christmas programs, and they went to ours. I
There were-
think we included them in our pep rallies and stuff
How many
like that.
rooms were there for elementary? I'd forgotten.
God, I think must have been 6.
There
'Cause
can't have been 6, Delmar.
Well, they were smaller than they are now, the rooms.
I know there were
I
2
wonder if the high school wasn't on top and the
No.
elementary.
Some of the high school, the business classes were over here in the basement, and over there in the basement, and then we were above someplace. And was the elementary in between? I don't even know,
Can't remember either.
because I don't remember much. I never did go to the elementary.
All I remember, we had a 6th grade teacher. Her name was Miss Pearl, and she was an old bag. And she had a triangular ruler. And if you weren't minding your business, she took that ruler and she says, "Put out your hand." And she took that triangular ruler, and some of the kids actually had bleeding knuckles.
She'd be in prison for
She
that.
didn't stop. Yeah,
And she should have been.
Yeah,
Yes, me.
she wouldn't get by with that
Yeah,
today.
no, that was awful.
Now, you must have had another teacher you liked besides the coach, though.
Oh yeah, I think my 1st grade teacher's name was Hanson. Liked her. Bomback was 2nd grade. I always say Bomback. It seemed like it might not have happened it might not have been that way, but it seemed like she winked at us all the time when we went home at night.
Well, if that made you happy. My 3 youngest sister and brother, they went down here without my permission. And I was babysitting, and I saw them in the lake, and I ran down and paddled every one of them because they weren't supposed to be there. If they had drowned, I think my mother would have not been happy.
Paddled you a few times?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Looks like there had been a lot of fun memories.
Oh, yeah. We had a good time here.
Well, how many years did you live here?
I lived here, when I started high school, 4 years. Used to have to ride a horse to get out to bring in the cattle.
Looks like the hills are higher now.
It just seems that way. Yeah.
It's a pretty landscape.
It is, yeah.
We used to shoot in the New Year. That's what they call the New Year's Eve. We used to drive over on this road, snow blocked. It was blocked, and we'd shovel it out. Open the road. We'd go over to that farmer over there, and he'd feed us, and
New Year's Eve.
refreshments, and come back. The road was blocked. Had to shovel it again. We were kids. We were tough. After the war, it was hard to get Hershey bars. It was hard to
Sugar.
get sugar. It was
Nylons.
hard to get nylons. He had all 3 of them. He had connections in Minneapolis. And one time, he'd get sugar by the carload, train carload. And I saw his invoice one time, and I saw his sale price. I can't remember what it was. But I said, "Eugene, you're not making any money on this. How come you're selling your sugar so cheap?" And he'd advertise all over. He says, "Delmar, when they come from Bismarck and Jamestown, Aberdeen to buy sugar, they're going to buy something else. They're just not going to buy the sugar." That was his lead. That was his come on. He was a good businessman.
Sugar was rationed. You couldn't. So my mother took a recipe, and instead of using sugar, she used corn syrup. It was good, but it wasn't as good as with sugar. And then she made frosting with this corn syrup. It was kind of fluffy and good, but
It's not the same.
it wasn't the same.
Another thing that's funny, and I've said this. I have Seventh Day Adventist friends, relatives, and they made a lot of sausage here, homemade sausage, just like they do in Wishick, but the recipe was different, of course. But he said if the Seventh Day Adventists come in here and ask if that's all beef, you say yes. So he'd come in, is that all beef? Yep. And sometimes I lie to my own relatives. Yeah, it's all beef.
Oops.
Eugene.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was a businessman. He was a good boss. He was good to me though. When he hired me, he says, Delmar, you can eat anything you want to in here, but eat it in front of me. Don't hide it. Don't go downstairs and eat it. Eat it in front of me. And I ate ice cream when I wanted to and candy and never said anything. But there was a gal working in there at the same time. She'd take Hershey bars or bananas and go downstairs and eat. Every once in a while, you'd catch her down there, would eat, chew her out. And she'd ask me, how come I get chewed out and you don't? I says, I eat it in front of them. That's what you should do. Eat it in front of them. Don't hide it. I liked him. He was a tough boss, but I liked him.
You're right. He was a businessman.
You bet. You bet. But this was a service station too. Home oil company. They sold gas too, and I tell you what, they sold machinery all over the country and cars. One day we had an explosion in the rear of the shop, and the guy burned to death. Had an explosion, and I can still see him running. His clothes were burning. He didn't survive. He didn't make it. His last name was Rohrbach. I can't remember his first name. There was a big elevator down here to our right, and they moved it to Wishick. When they came up, you can stop
in the
here.
process of moving.
In the process of moving, when they came up here and made a right turn, the darn thing slipped and tilted. And I know this isn't the same telephone pole, but it seemed like the telephone pole was holding that elevator up. And the picture of that, I think, ended up in almost every newspaper in the country. Telephone pole holds up tipping elevator or whatever. But somehow they got it straightened out and moved it all the way to Wishick. 11 miles. This was an old, crooked, gravelly road. Unbelievable. But I tell you what, that was. I know that telephone pole didn't hold it, but it sure looked like it did.